My number one tip for trying to grow a YouTube channel, and not all of you are going to like this, is I couldn't poo. And then you will get a small percentage of absolute stubborn-headed donkeys who will do whatever they want. Because if I was stranded on a desert island with Gary, I would have thrown myself to the sharks. My problems don't seem quite as big because you realize that sounds so pretentious. I am an artist on tips, techniques, methods, and yoga poses that you can do. Starting a YouTube channel is harder. I'm less likely to succeed than starting a business. I was going to quit YouTube this year. You're not just spending money, you're spending your life. Leave it to stew. Pretty manky and swampy and gross. Really like it. Boom, and there's a lake, a beautiful lake stretching off into the distance. The world around me is a beautiful artwork. Is social media really destroying wild camping? Well, that is going to be one of the questions that I'm going to try and answer for you in this video today. And you know what? Let's just put you out of your misery. The answer, in my humble but correct opinion, is no. In fact, I actually think social media is one of the best things, or arguably one of the best things that's ever happened to wild camping. And I know as soon as I'm saying that, some of you are tensing and getting frustrated, wanting to shout. I'll explain. But I'm going to be answering that question as well as 14 other questions in this video that you guys submitted. I asked for some Q&A questions, ask me anything, and I got over 40. Can't answer 40 questions in the one video, that's ridiculous. So I've cut it down to the 15 questions that I think might have the widest appeal or the most interest to the largest number of people. So these are going to be questions like, what do I actually do for a living? What are the things, or do I do any things to try and keep content fresh? How do I plan my adventures? What I wish my future self would say to me. I think that's a good one. And what is my number one tip for anyone wanting to grow a YouTube channel, and maybe an outdoors channel in particular? But let's go back to that question. So why do I think that social media has been so good for wild camping? And the outdoors in general, let's just not limit it to wild camping. Let's say wild camping, hiking, any outdoor activity. And I'm going to start by acknowledging the negatives, because there are a lot of negatives to social media. We have to be honest. And I think the biggest sort of crime that social media commits, especially social media just like still photographs or short form videos that last 15-20 seconds, is that they don't provide the full story. Even long form videos, even 20-minute long videos on YouTube don't give you the whole story. A 20-minute video that I will make on YouTube might cover 16 hours of actual activity, so you don't get all the details. That's especially a problem with a still image. Still images, for example, can give the impression that wild camping is much more glamorous than it really is, which can attract a certain type of person who just wants to do it to get the image. And maybe they're not as prepared as they should be, or they're a little bit ignorant around things that like leave no trace. Or it can make it seem much easier than it is, or it doesn't acknowledge difficulties involved in parking and transport and those kinds of things. And also it doesn't say how busy a location is. I'm at a location now, there's absolutely not a single person here because I'm here during the week. At the weekend it might be different, but this is also a location that looks really beautiful. Somebody might see this and think, oh, I'll go there, get myself a photograph of standing where Stephen was, without realizing that to get here I've had to hack my way through 7-foot tall bracken, brambles. The terrain's incredibly technical. If you get stuck out here, there's lots of details aren't really there. So you get people who are underprepared heading into these situations, or people who are just ignorant. And then you will always get a percentage of people, and I think it is a small percentage. Some people don't think that, but I think it's a small percentage of irresponsible people who will go, they'll fly camp, so they'll camp, they'll trash, they'll pitch up right beside a road and make a nuisance of themselves and not really abide to sort of outdoor access rules or best guidelines, that kind of stuff. And then you will get a small percentage of absolute stubborn-headed donkeys who will do whatever they want because they feel they have the right to. There's just no negotiating with those people. Some people you can't win. But those problems aside, for me, I look at it this way. Are the benefits, the positive benefits to people and to society, do those outweigh the downsides that we all know about? And the positive benefits are improved mental health, improved physical health, improved sense of well-being, improved sense of self-worth. It's actually, I've got a figure here, this will interest you. It's estimated that people getting into the outdoors saves, where is it? I wrote this down. If you're someone who goes outdoors regularly, it's estimated that just being outdoors is equivalent to £360 worth of other kinds of health benefits. I'm not sure exactly how they work that out, but I suppose the way I'm thinking about that is if you're someone who goes outdoors, you're taking pressure off the NHS to the tune of £360 a year. So for that aspect, I think, yeah, social media is good because social media has got more people outside, more people doing these things, and it's good for society. But why do I think it's actually good for the activity itself if we ignore the society benefits? Well, for a long time, wild camping has been this sort of niche activity done by sort of slightly strange people who maybe went to the Scouts when they were younger. But now that it's become mainstream and there's more people involved, that means when it comes to trying to get legislation changes, do you think that's more likely to happen for a hobby that has a very small number of people or that has a huge number of people? You probably didn't think about that. People fighting to get access onto places like Dartmoor in England, if it was only 15 people went wild camping every weekend, why on earth would you give them more access? Whereas if it's hundreds, if it's thousands, and there's obviously a clear benefit to society there, that's when politicians are going to get involved, because politicians like numbers, and they like numbers of people because people vote for them. So that's why more people doing these activities, I think, is actually going to be good for them in the long term. I think the other benefit of social media is that people are becoming more and more aware of concepts like Leave No Trace. I was at a planning meeting, like an outdoor recreation planning meeting, recently in Northern Ireland, and at that meeting people were talking about how in a certain forest park in Northern Ireland, the fly tipping and the trash camping was far worse 20 years ago than it is today. Now there are other areas where that problem is much worse now, but in that particular area, sort of campaigns of education and information actually led to a decline, and the general public are now becoming more aware of these concepts. As wild camping reaches the news, terms like Leave No Trace are going to start appearing in there as well, and that's going to filter out into the wider population and result in, result in wider education, and that's only a good thing. I think sometimes we can be guilty, and I've done this, of saying that social media is bad for outdoor activities in a selfish sense because we kind of want to keep it to ourselves. But I think if we want the greater good, if we want society to benefit from it, it might end up being a case that, well, we do have to hike a little bit further. We might have to give up some of our favourite camping spots and find new ones. But in my opinion, that is a fair price to pay for the greater good. I'd like to get your thoughts. So much more could be said on that. I don't even think I've scratched the surface, but I'm going to move on. Right, let's go to the next question. So that question was asked by Mick Horsley 3169. So thanks, Mick, for that. Pixel Peter asks, what is the worst to deal with while running or camping? Sheep, rain, people, cold, midges. The worst conditions, I think, to be outside in, bar none, is a combination of wind, wet, and rain. Any one of those things on its own you can deal with up to a certain length of time. But when it's windy, when it's wet, and it's cold, it is miserable from the get-go. I hiked for 2 days in the West Highland Way when it rained constantly, and for the first day in that rain, actually, I quite enjoyed it for 3 hours. If it had also been windy and cold at the same time, it would have been misery instantly. So yeah, wind, wet, and rain combined are the worst things to have to deal with in the outdoors. Wallowa Hikes asks, I like this one. If you were stranded on a desert island with Gary, do you think he would eat you to survive? No, Gary would not get a chance to eat me to survive, because if I was stranded on a desert island with Gary, I would have thrown myself to the sharks within the first 24 hours. I'm not sure who asked this because I forgot to put their name in, but someone has asked, does van life seem attractive to you? So, yes and no. I've done van life a little bit. The most I've lived in my van is 10 days I've spent in my van. I could quite happily live in my van for up to 2 weeks. I know some people who do proper van life where they live in their van for months at a time, but honestly for me, no, long-term van life isn't that attractive. It's really not as glamorous as you think. You've got issues around toileting, trying to get showers, trying to keep clean. I'm a sweaty person. When I've lived in my van for just like 2 days, if I haven't had access to proper shower, I do not feel good. Pretty manky and swampy and gross. So yeah, it's just ugh. No, not great for me, or anyone having to come into contact with me. But I can see the appeal of it. If I was ever to do van life properly, I'd have to have a much bigger van. There'd have to be, I'd have to maybe have like a shower in it or something like that. But that doesn't suit what I like doing now. I have a small van. I've got a Transit Custom. I like it. It's small. It fits into normal parking space. It's low enough so I can get into pretty much any car park. So to get a bigger van would sort of take away a lot of those benefits. So van life, something I'd like to do for maybe a week or two at a time, but no, long term, doesn't really appeal. Not currently anyway. Plus I've got too many hobbies. I would have to have my bike, my paddle board, and all my gadgets and my cameras. I have to have a screen for doing my editing. It doesn't really suit my lifestyle, which is ironic for being someone who does all this outdoor stuff. You'd think it'd be perfect, but because I document it, that adds an extra level of stuff that I need. Okay. Ivan DP1967 asks, what motivates you to run, hike, wild camp? Is it just for YouTube or a more personal reason? Ooh. See, I think for me there's several layers to this. There's health. My job has always involved sitting at a desk. I mean, I make videos, I edit videos, and you might think I'm outside all the time. I spend the majority, probably 80%, if not 90% of my time is spent indoors, sitting down in front of a screen. So there was a point in my life I started putting on a lot of weight, getting pretty unhealthy, and that pushed me out into the outdoors a bit. There's also curiosity. I like going new places and exploring things. For me, it doesn't even have to be somewhere, like some people feel this urge to, like they get wanderlust, they need to travel to other countries to get that. But I don't, I just need to go somewhere I've never been before. Like this is a spot I've been here once before, like a week ago. But just coming somewhere like this that's new, even in my own country, yeah, there's something exciting about it. That sense of adventure and just going somewhere. And that's another thing, just that general sense of adventure, just that attitude. I think it's an attitude that I'm going for an adventure. And I think that I have that because when I was a kid, when I was very young, we lived on the edge of a field. And I love nothing more than to go up that field with a hearty stick and beat the living daylights out of thistles and nettles and scratch my way through brambles and have these adventures outside. And I always loved that. And part of that has kind of stuck with me. Something else is that I like to feel small. I don't know about you, but when I go outside, my problems don't seem quite as big because you realize that actually my life and the troubles of my life are actually not that big. It's not that they're not significant, it's that they're not big. I mean, I'm sitting on a rock that has been here way before me and will be here much longer than me. I've passed by trees today that are older than me, that'll be here after I'm gone, and it kind of puts your life into perspective a little bit. Helps you to realize that some of the things that stress you out in life or you might get annoyed about don't actually matter that much, or they don't have as much weight as they would other sides, like losing your keys. I still get angry when I lose my keys. And then I guess for me another aspect of it is related to my faith, my beliefs. And to me, the world around me is a beautiful artwork that has been created. So when I go outdoors, that is me browsing this divine art gallery, if you want to put it that way. I feel that more as a creative person, as a designer myself, going out into something that to me has been designed, I feel closer to the designer behind it. Which I guess people will have a lot of opinions on. So if you want to ask me about that, you can DM me. I'll be happy enough to talk about it. But yeah, those are my big personal reasons for going outside. And then I guess the YouTube is the other side of it. I'm a filmmaker. That's my art. I know that sounds so pretentious. I am an artist, and I must go outside into the world, which is my muse. There's a seal. There's a seal over there. Hi, seal. Hold on. I'm going to try and get a shot of this seal. Hey, you big fatty. I need to do more stuff at the coast. I love the coast. I don't come here enough. What was I saying? Oh yes, the other aspect of it. Yes, I like filmmaking. That's my profession. That's my art. I don't know if it's just necessarily profession. I like making. Oh, that's my... That's my go and make sure the tide hasn't come in timer. I'm back. I'm setting a timer every 15 minutes to go and check to see how far the tide has come in, because at high tide, I will be stuck on this rock. Yeah, so making videos is my art. I just like making things. I like creating things. I feel like in a way my purpose, or one of my purposes here on Earth is to make things that other people will enjoy. At the minute that's videos. Someday it might be something, it might be something else. Does that mean my purpose is an entertainer? I don't really like that word, entertainer. Maybe somewhere in between entertainer and artist. And I find that making those videos about outdoor activities combines a lot of the things that I enjoy in my life, along with the gifts that I have, the things that I'm good at. So that's my other reason. And then I guess also, now that it's become work, that's a motivation as well, because you gotta feed the machine. Right, what do we got next? Ems Wolf. Oh my word. We've gone from like really deep, meaningful questions here about the meaning and purpose of life almost, to this question. Ems Wolf 02. How do you deal with camping number twos? It puts me off camping. You know what? This is a great question, because too many people are scared to go camping because of toilet issues. I think it probably is one of the most common things that puts people off, even though maybe they won't admit it. So there are two ways, pun intended, that you can deal with your number twos. And the first one is to not have one while you're camping. There's a couple of ways you can do this. You could take Imodium before you go camping. Imodium is a over-the-counter drug you can take. In fact, you can buy it on the shelf in Tesco, that I think if it paralyzes your gut temporarily, that sounds like really dangerous, but that's basically how it works. It sort of stops your intestines from moving stuff along. So basically you won't go to the toilet because your guts aren't doing anything below your stomach, something like that. I think it's a terrible idea, because the one and only time some people swear by it, but the one and only time I tried taking Imodium so I wouldn't have to go to the toilet, I was traveling, and what happened was I got really bad stomach cramps. I got gut cramps, but I couldn't go to the toilet. I felt like I was about to explode. Sat in the toilet for an hour, nothing happening, because I'd taken 2 Imodium tablets and everything down there was paralyzed and I couldn't poo. So if I really don't want to go to the toilet when I'm camping, I just go before the camp, and then what I do is do not have breakfast the next day. I find if I have breakfast in the morning, that kind of triggers everything moving right along, so I want to avoid that. The other thing is just go. Just let it drop out. Just make peace with doing the outdoors poo plop. If you want to find out the best way to do that, there are a plethora of videos on tips, techniques, methods, and yoga poses that you can do to poop in the outdoors. But don't let it stop you. Right, what's next? Interested how you fit it all in. Are you full-time on the commercial work? Excuse me, burp there, but love the video, Stephen. Keep it up. Yeah, so my day job is sort of marketing and video, and I might talk about that a little bit more later. But how do I fit it all in? I've made a lot of sacrifices, and that is the simple answer to that question. If you want to start a YouTube channel and you want it to go anywhere and be successful, you're going to have to make sacrifices. I used to play video games, I used to have other hobbies. I haven't played a video game in 4 or 5 years. All the time I might have spent playing video games, I now spend answering comments or replying to stuff on YouTube. I don't really watch TV. When I come home in the evenings at night and sitting down, if I'm sitting down, the TV's on, I maybe have a laptop with me and be doing some planning or doing other stuff. For me, for the last 5 years anyway, I've probably worked too much. And starting a YouTube channel, I would argue, because I've done both, is harder. I'm less likely to succeed than starting a business. And that is the truth, because with a business, your business is going to succeed or fail within 3 years. The average YouTube channel doesn't go anywhere for 5 to 10 years. So that's 5 to 10 years. I've uploaded a weekly video now for nearly 6 years and counting. And it's only really been this year that it's really started to take off from a money-making point of view or a more commercial point of view. I'm now at the point with YouTube where, depending on the month, it's been up to 80% of my income has come from YouTube. Other months it would be as low as 25, but it's every year it's going up and up and up, but it's taken 6 years to get here. So yeah, how do I fit it all in? It requires sacrifice. And if you're gonna do it, it's important to know what the limit to that sacrifice is. There's no point wasting your time, wasting your life, working away at something that might not be going anywhere. I made a decision at the start of this year, I should not have drunk that Fanta, that I was going to quit YouTube this year if it didn't go anywhere. Don't worry, I didn't make the I'm quitting YouTube. I can't be bothered with those videos. It's like a really easy way of getting views, just say I'm quitting and then do a video about how you're thinking about quitting but not actually quitting. I went through that and just didn't tell anybody. So yeah, the start of this year, I invested quite a bit of money, did a mentoring course for YouTube, applied a lot of those things, a lot of the lessons I learned, and I also got advice. And the advice was that actually they thought my channel had a lot of potential. They looked at my stats and told me my stats were all good, it's all heading in the right direction, and then would give me some clear pointers for things that I should do. And I've been doing those now, and the strategy's been paying off. My views, my watch time over the last 6 months is up 150%. I don't think I'll be able to maintain that, but we'll see where it goes. Grey Hikes 536 asks, how do you keep your content fresh? I see many influencers, I hate that word, reviewing the same equipment. Feels like some are stuck in a bit of a cycle. Some are 100% stuck in a bit of a cycle. Before I decided I wanted this channel to be all about the outdoors, it was about a mix of technology and the outdoors, and tech is such a cycle. I got stuck in that. Every year on this channel, I reviewed the new GoPro. I reviewed a new drone every single year, new 360, every single year. I just made the same video over and over, and it was an endless cycle until I realized I didn't want to do that anymore. So when I switched to just focusing on the outdoors, I made that same decision that I don't want to review every product that gets sent my way, or even the popular stuff, because I don't want this to be a shopping channel. I think it's more important that this is a channel that people get something from, rather than a channel that makes people give up part of their life, because that's what you give up when you spend money on something. You're not just spending money, you're spending your life. I've started to think about money, about that. When I go to buy something, it's, you know, this is £1,000. It's not really £1,000. It is whatever number of weeks of my life. That's what stuff costs. What was the question? Oh yeah, how to keep things fresh. So I made a decision not to review too much stuff. I do still review stuff. I'm very, very strategic about what I review, when I review it. But also another thing, I try not to do the same type of video on repeat. One of the reasons for that is just my personality. I personally will get bored very, very quickly if I'm just doing the same thing on repeat. So I need to keep, I need the variety, otherwise I get fed up. So that's why I try to vary the activities, the locations, and even the style of video. But the other thing I do is I don't really watch that many outdoors YouTube channels, and that's partly deliberate because I do not want to be influenced, or I don't want to fall down into those funnels of doing the same thing, because if you do look, you will see people doing very typical types of videos. And again, sometimes I will strategically do one of those kinds of videos, but there are some channels and they're just effectively making the same video again and again and again and again. And I've just tried to avoid falling into that trap. I've always been good at coming up with ideas. That's played into my work, in creative media. That's been really handy. I always have a long list of ideas of things I want to do, which is a useful. It's been a useful ability to have. John Horrific 8504 asks, do you ever find filming your stuff makes you enjoy it less, or do you enjoy the process? I imagine lugging around all that equipment must be exhausting and break your flow state. So the interesting thing is that actually my flow state is never better as when I'm out on a hike, on a camp, on my own, with the sole purpose, not the sole purpose, but the main purpose of shooting a video. Because as I walk, I think in shots. When I'm driving to a location, I'm mentally thinking, okay, what are the shots going to be here? What am I going to say at the start? When I'm walking on the trail, I'm looking, I'm seeing, I'm hearing. I'm looking for opportunities that might be a story opportunity, or I'm looking through trees, I'm looking for silhouettes, I'm looking for rocks in the background. I'm thinking, oh, would that look good with a long lens, a wide lens? And it is mentally exhausting, but when I get into that flow state, I really like it. But I really have to be on my own to get into that kind of that state, which is why most of my videos are actually shot on my own. So for me, no, it doesn't spoil the experience. For me, it actually makes it, because again, it's me out being an artist and doing what I do. But the caveat to that is, if I end up falling into the trap of making a similar type of video over and over again, I do start to resent it. That happened with running videos. I was making videos about races over and over, and it was very similar. All the videos looked the same, the locations are very similar. I was doing the same things, asking people the same questions, using the same music on repeat, and that eventually started to feel boring and stale for me, which is one of the reasons I don't make those kinds of videos so much. But I do have some fresh ideas for how running is going to come back into this channel. Andrew Hickinson 3189 asked, if your future self aged 70 traveled back in time and spoke to you, what would you hope he would say? I think that is a great question. What do I hope my future self would say to me? You know what? I wish my future self would say to me, Stephen, you didn't waste it. You spent your time well. That's what I'd hope he'd say. But I think my biggest fear is of sort of wasting my time here. Yeah. So that's what I would like to be told. It was time well spent. Benham asks, how do you plan your trips, where to sleep, food, charge batteries, etc.? I look up maps, I go on social media, I go on Facebook groups. For the West Highland Way is a good example of this. First of all, I found out about the West Highland Way through Instagram, people posting about it. I bought a book about it. I tend to do this. I bought a book about it. I bought maps. So I looked over the map again and again and again, familiarized myself with the terrain and the location. I then joined a Facebook group called West Highland Way Hints and Tips. I asked questions in there. I read the posts and just sort of gradually got all the information. I find when you're planning to do something, you go through a couple of phases. You go through a research phase. That's where you just try to absorb as much information as possible about what it is you're going to do. You don't worry about planning, you just read, absorb, leave it to stew, and then you sit down and plan out what it is you want to do. And that's roughly the approach I do for any kind of bigger trip. So, Camp with Matt asks, best tip for someone trying to grow a YouTube channel. Okay, so my number one tip for trying to grow a YouTube channel, and not all of you are going to like this, is blame yourself first. If you get into the habit of assuming that the reason you're not succeeding on YouTube is because there's an algorithm that's against you, or anything else like that, or other people are stealing your ideas, or other people are doing this, if you start blaming other people, you're going to fail. You're going to fail, because ultimately it's down to you. YouTube is a very saturated market. You could be excellent at producing videos, but if nobody's watching those videos, it's a problem with your video. Even if your video is technically great, even if your video you think has an interesting topic, if it's not succeeding, there's no one to blame but yourself. Because either the packaging is wrong, the title or the thumbnail, the topic maybe isn't as interesting as you thought it was, or it's not interesting at that time. You could make a video that's really, really good, but maybe no one's thinking about it at that moment. So then nobody watches the video. Like if you made a winter video in summer or a summer video in winter, or if you make a video about a topic that's really popular, but you make that video at the end of the time of it being really popular, because there's kind of a curve. So here we have a curve. Some first person makes the camping in wind and rain video. It does massively well. It becomes a trend. These do really well. And now we're down at the bottom of this curve. We're down here now when it comes to those camping in horrible conditions videos. If you do one now, it will not succeed as well as it did a couple of years ago. There's certain trends and things will peak, and even if you made a good video about it, it's not going to succeed. If YouTube is not working for you, you have to think, what am I doing wrong? What can I improve? Another reason for that is that you are the only thing you have control over. Forget about the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't exist. Well, it does exist, but pretend it doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is the audience. It's about what the audience likes. If something isn't working, it's because you haven't managed to connect with the audience. It's an audience problem, and it's your problem to connect with that audience. If I do a video called 35-mile run in the Mourne Mountains, that will underperform really badly. But if I make a video called finding a ruined aircraft in the Mourne Mountains, and I happen to be running in that video, it's going to be doing much better. For me, my process now is think of a topic that I can have while I'm doing an activity. There's so much more to this topic, but yeah, I think that's the best tip. Don't blame anything else other than yourself if your YouTube channel isn't succeeding. And I don't mean that in a horrible, harsh way. It's just how it is. It's because you are the only thing that you have control over. And that is a good thing, because that means you can make the necessary changes to your videos, to your content, and what you're doing to succeed or not succeed. It's not guaranteed. The majority of channels will never go anywhere. So the hard truth is that it might just never work for you, but there's always the possibility that the reason it's not working for you is because you've just doing the same thing for the last 5 years and haven't changed and haven't adapted and haven't ever asked the question, what could I do differently? So experiment a lot and you're in charge. Jill Foster 66 asks, where did you get your little mascot running rat from? So I have this little toy rat that I wear when I'm doing running videos. I got it in IKEA about 5 years ago. There you go. Andrew 675 asks, what is your favorite YouTube channel? Isn't outdoors related? So there are only four YouTube channels that I watch every single video of and have done for the last, we'll say, at least 3-4 years. The Slow Mo Guys, Colin Furs, Daily Dose of Internet, and Foil Arms and Hog. Slow Mo Guys do experiments with stuff in slow motion. Colin Furs is an engineer who makes incredible things. Daily Dose of Internet is just sort of wholesome memes, basically. And Foil Arms and Hog is an Irish comedy trio. Other channels I like that are not outdoors is XKCD's What If, Adam Savage's Test It, Quarter Crew, Quarter Digital, Every Frame's a Painting, Mark Roper, Patrick H. Williams, Kyrgyzstan, can't pronounce that, and iPhone. I actually mostly don't watch outdoor channels. I really like channels where people do experiments or build stuff. I tend to watch what I don't do because I often feel, never mind not wanting to accidentally fall into copying trends. When I watch people doing the thing that I do, I feel like I'm just watching somebody work, you know, because I do it for work. Therefore, it just feels like, you know, it'd be like me if I worked in an office watching somebody at a computer. It's not quite that, but it feels a little bit like that sometimes. So I tend to watch more random stuff. Andy Walks 22, what do you do for a living? Did you try and hide YouTube from your friends and workmates when you started? So my background is marketing. I did graphic design, I did web design, I did a little bit of web development, I did print design, I did branding, and then I moved into commercial video production. I've made adverts for TV, mostly content online. Just this week on Tuesday, I was shooting some sort of viral short reel type content, short form content for a telecommunications company. It's a wide variety. I've worked on everything from agriculture, hospitality, neuroscience, engineering. It's a big variety. Did I hide it? No, because I've always been a little bit of an attention seeker. When I was a child, I was always that one yelling at people to watch, to try and see what I was doing. And I thought about this a lot, and I think it's not actually that I liked having people's attention on me, because I actually feel kind of awkward and embarrassed when people's attention is on me. And I feel like I get really nervous when I have to do stuff in public. So it's not that I crave the attention, but I crave the dopamine that I get when I do something stupid and someone sees it and reacts. So I think I'm a reaction seeker rather than an attention seeker. Last question I'm going to put in here, because I think this guy's, oh, title check. Let me check. Okay. I've got about 5 minutes before I can't get off this island. So Richard Jennings 278 asked me this question: if you could invent a long distance walk, what would it include? And I think Richard has asked me this question because he's shamelessly trying to plug his Lakelands Way 12-day walk in the Lake District, which is now available online. So if I could design a multi-day walk adventure, what would I do? Well, okay, so this is like a total fantasy. I would start at the coast, walk along beautiful coastline. There'd be beaches, there'd be rock pools to explore. You would then walk up on the cliffs and walk along beautiful cliffs, maybe along the Giant's Causeway if it's here. And then we turn inland. We'd go to a forest, we'd go through the forest, a little bit uphill, but there's pine needles on the floor, it's well spread out. It's not like a commercial forest. There's plants growing up underneath, and the light, dappled light is coming down through the trees, and we come out, boom, and there's a lake, a beautiful lake stretching off into the distance. And at the end of the lake, you can see the mountains. So we walk along, trail along the side of the lake, right down by the water, so I can go for a swim if I want to, or camp along the side of the beach. I get to the base of the mountain, I climb the mountain, up into the snow layer. It's now snowy, and there's a cabin up there among the trees, and I stay there for the night among the trees, and I climb on up a little bit more, wander through the peaks, through the snow in beautiful warm sunlight, and then descend off the mountain down into a jungle. There's exotic birds flying around, hammock in the trees, keep going, and then we eventually circle back to the sea where we started. Actually sounds a little bit like New Zealand. New Zealand, I think, has a combination of all those things, but that would be my sort of if I could make my fantasy walk, that would be what it is. But thank you for watching this video. Let me know if you found any of those answers useful, and let me know if you've got any questions on any more of that stuff, or if you want to ask me like personally. Best place to ask me questions personally is on Instagram. Send me a DM on Instagram, and I will do my best to reply. I can't reply to everything, but it's probably the best way to get in touch with me if you're trying to. And yeah, I'm going to get off this rock before I get trapped by the sea. Thank you for watching.
I was dirty in there.